In pretty much every sport, there's something that's known as the ultimate achievement, or something equivalent to that. It's usually tied to a player's performance or doing a certain feat. Like in basketball, if you have like a 60-point game, that might be considered career-defining. But this gets very different when we look at individual sports like bowling. You see, bowling has objective numbers. You can throw 12 strikes in a row and throw a perfect game, but that's not exactly the ultimate achievement. And neither is an 800 series, throwing 800 within 3 games, or a 266.66 average. Instead, it's usually 36 strikes in a row, 3 perfect games back to back to back, a 900 series, the king of the honor scorers. It is widely considered one of the greatest feats a bowler can accomplish within their career. It's so rare that only 42 have been certified in the entire history of sanctioned bowling. To put that into perspective, there are thousands of 300 games bowled every year, but just 41 individuals have thrown 3 in a row in a series and had it recognized. However, that's not the part of the story I'm focusing on today, because the history of this achievement is quite messy. Controversy over the first person to do it, drama over a teenager's circumstances of his, and all of this has exposed some massive problems with how the governing bodies of bowling have handled its most important achievements. So today, I'm gonna break down some of the most controversial of these 900 series, and trust me, it's a lot crazier than you might think. But to understand the controversy since, we have to start with the first one. La Habra 300 Bowl in California, Thursday Night League. Here you'll find a guy named Glenn Allison bowling, and now, Glenn isn't some random nightly league bowler. He's actually a PBA professional with multiple national titles and was a future Hall of Famer. That night at League, Glenn started striking like usual, and in the first game, he shoots 300, and the usual people come up and give him congratulations as normal. But the second game is where things changed. Another perfect game. Now people are paying attention because back-to-back perfect games in League is something you will barely ever see in your entire career. One perfect game is difficult enough with the transition and the mentality, but with his experience as a pro, that pressure must have been minimal at most. But once he hit his third and final game of the night, he kept striking, and striking, and striking. By the end of the game, Glenn Allison had just bowled the first ever 900 series in a sanctioned league. 36 strikes in a row, witnessed by an entire league full of people. The bowling community obviously went crazy around him. A 900 was basically unheard of at the time. The highest series before him was an 890 a decade prior, which was doused in heavy controversy as to why it wasn't sanctioned. However, there was another step to the process, because you don't just bowl a 900 and it goes in the book. They have to verify your scores. So, the ABC, now known as the USBC, United States Bowling Congress, flies in the next day, certifies it, and stamps it in as the first perfect series in history. Except, I lied. That didn't happen. USBC looked at the score, inspected the lanes bowled on, and in Allison's words, performed a very subjective test and turned him down. They rejected it without doing proper testing. The very first 900 series in history, bowled normally in a sanctioned league, witnessed by dozens of people, and the governing body in charge of putting it in the record book says it just didn't count. However, this is where things get a little odd, because even on Glenn's pair, his scores were the only ones higher than normal that night. And in fact, there have been several claims that it was actually a below average night for scoring, with one obvious exception being the 900. And furthermore, it is almost impossible to enforce a standard of oil and lane conditions after an entire day and multiple leagues had been bowled on them. Therefore, the tests used to deny his 900 series shouldn't have even happened in the first place. Now, Glenn Allison was obviously furious about this. He tried to appeal the decision, ABC doubles down and says no again. So Glenn took the path that pretty much anyone would take in his situation, and he files a lawsuit. Glenn argued that before that point, the lanes were sanctioned, the league was sanctioned, and that everything had been done perfectly by the rules. And he also argued that you can't just reject a score after the fact because you decided the lanes weren't hard enough. However, this case didn't make it very far. The judge basically said that the ABC has the right to set their own standards, and since Glenn Allison was a member of ABC, trying to get recognition within ABC, if the lanes didn't meet their standards, they don't have to recognize the score. Glenn Allison spent the rest of his life bitter about this. But who can blame him? He bowled 36 strikes in a row in front of witnesses, and the record books say it never happened. But there's some flawed reasoning in all of this outside of the specific case of his 900. You see, ABC's counter-argument was that if you start recognizing that 900 on easy lane conditions, it opens the floodgates and the achievement becomes meaningless. And there is some logic to that. You don't want people setting up their own easiest possible house shot and shooting an easy 900 series just to get in the record book. But the other argument is that thousands of sanctioned leagues bowl on lanes that probably wouldn't have passed the test that denied Glenn. Had they been checked in the same manner, they wouldn't have passed and they wouldn't have ended up in the record book like they did. This whole situation created this massive debate in bowling that still really hasn't been fully resolved. Was ABC in the right to protect the integrity of the first 900, or did they screw over a guy who accomplished something historic, the first 900? Glenn Allison, as of making this video, died just over 3 months ago in October 2025, without ever getting his officially recognized 900. And despite all of the attempts, the petitions, so on and so forth, trying to get his series added retroactively, ABC/USBC maintains their position on not letting it in. According to the opinion of most people, including myself, this series was probably the greatest 900 ever bowled for several reasons. Probably due to the fact that he did it with plastic on wooden lanes with the older, more difficult oil conditions than we see today. Furthermore, Glenn Allison was also the first person to shoot 900. While the 900 series remains still a difficult feat today, it would take more than 15 years after that for another sanctioned one to appear. So here's the story of the actually certified first 900 series. There's a college tournament There's a teenager in upstate New York named Robert Mushtare. He's 17 years old during all of this controversy. He's actually a really talented young bowler at the time, and he started bowling some 900 series. He didn't bowl a 900 series, he bowled multiple of them. Between November 2005 and February 2006, Mushtare claims to have bowled 5 900 series, with 2 of those being in practice and the others in league. Now right away, you should be thinking, wait, 5 of them? In 3 months? When there had only been 7 in the previous 8 years? Yeah, something isn't right here, clearly. So here's the story of what actually happened. Robert bowled in a league. He wasn't always able to bowl on any regular league night, so he would often pre-bowl. Pre-bowling is when you go before your league, and usually alone or with a few other people who can't make the league session, you just bowl your games ahead of time, pre-bowling. And oftentimes it's pretty common. Say you have a doctor's appointment or you're out of town. You can pre-bowl so you can maintain your average and not let down your team. So Robert would show up to pre-bowl, bowl his 3 games alone or with minimal witnesses, and then turn in his scores. The first 900 he claims to have bowled was in a league that wasn't sanctioned, so that one obviously couldn't be approved. But then in December 2005, he claims to have bowled another one. This time, it's in a certified league on certified lanes, and USBC obviously approved it. And Robert Mushtare, at 16 years of age, was the first certified youth 900 in bowling history. 2 months later, in February 2006, he claims to have done it again, in another pre-bowl. Yet another 900 that was certified. Robert Mushtare now has 2 official 900 series before he's even 18 years old, both bowled alone in pre-bowls under questionable circumstances. ESPN's Outside the Lines did an investigative report on it. People questioned whether pre-bowls should even count for a major achievement like this. Glenn Allison came out of the woodworks and said that he was skeptical of Mushtare's 900s. Similarly, Tim Mack, the now player rep for Storm, also said the exact same thing and that it was very, very sketchy. Which is honestly kind of strange when you think about it. The very guy who had his 900 rejected is now saying that someone else's certified 900s are very suspicious. Technically, Robert didn't break any rules, as far as we know. Pre-bowling was allowed, the lanes were certified, USBC approved both scores. But something about that just feels wrong. The idea that you can get the biggest amateur achievement in sports with nobody watching. Sonnenfeld did it in a tournament full of people. Glenn Allison did it in his full league. And pretty much every other 900 on this list was done during a league or a tournament. Furthermore, there's also some questioning as to whether Robert was cheating these scores and if he actually bowled them. There have been a lot of claims as to people he knew, connections he had, all of that. And well, we'll never know if he did bowl them or not. But USBC did make it clear that they agreed that something was off, because shortly after that second certified 900, they changed the rulebook. Now, if you want your 900 series to be recognized, you have to do it on regular lanes during regular league play with witnesses present. By doing that, they've eliminated the possibility of pre-bowling your way into history. So, Robert Mushtare has 2 certified 900s that will always stay in the record books, at least as far as we know. But there's always going to be an asterisk next to them in people's minds. Even if he did bowl them legit, the circumstances are so sketchy that his achievement is always going to be under scrutiny. So what does this all mean? Where does this leave us? As of 2025, there are 42 certified 900 series in the history of the USBC. Some of them happened in tournaments, like Jeremy Sonnenfeld's. Some happened in regular league play with full houses watching the bowler. And some, like Robert Mushtare's, happened in pre-bowls with minimal or no witnesses. And there are also dozens of bowlers who have came within 1 or 2 pins of 900 and have to live with that for the rest of their lives. All of these issues have exposed a major issue in bowling between upholding the standards and recognizing achievement when it's necessary. On one hand, you need to have standards. On the other hand, when someone accomplishes something historic, telling them it doesn't count because the lanes were too easy just feels plain wrong. Because throwing back-to-back-to-back perfect games is still going to be just as difficult and luck dependent no matter how easy the conditions are. Sure, there might be more chances to get a little extra lucky, but we can't expect to throw one perfect game every time we step up to bowl. Mushtare's situation with pre-bowling shows yet another problem. Technically following the rules isn't always the same as doing something the best or the most correct way. Robert Mushtare didn't break any rules by pre-bowling, and it later resulted in that aforementioned rule change. But bowling 2 900s alone in pre-bowls with minimal witnesses and deep connections to the staff that allegedly witnessed it, it just doesn't feel like it should count the same as doing it in front of a crowd of people like all the other 900s. Nowadays, it is a lot easier to have something sanctioned. The sanctioning process is far more refined and a lot less subjective. So while it may be easier to throw a 900 now, given the easier lane conditions, you'll need witnesses. You need to bowl on regular league or tournament play patterns, and you obviously need to be a USBC member. But that doesn't change the fact that the history of this achievement is wildly messy and very intriguing. Glenn Allison bowled 36 in a row and died without his recognition. Jeremy Sonnenfeld did everything right and got his moment of fame. Robert Mushtare bowled alone and got certified anyway. And dozens of other bowlers since that moment have made the list of shooting a perfect 900. That is the controversial history of bowling's most legendary score. 36 strikes in a row sounds simple, but the reality is way more complicated than anybody wants to admit. But what do you guys think? I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Should I talk about more of the other controversial ones, or should I go to some of the close fails like the 890, the 899s? But I don't know. I got this idea from the comment section, so if you have any more ideas for me, leave them in the comment section below for a chance that I might pick it. I saw this talked about a lot on the iceberg as something that I've missed, and I'm thinking about maybe releasing an updated version of the video if I get enough support and enough new entries. But I want to thank you so much for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time.